Hey, what's up, friends? We are here again with another episode of Hot Thoughts, and perhaps my favorite one.
Right.
This one is topically my favorite question, which is, why are Christians so weird? But people might be saying, is that what they're going to talk about? Are they just going to have a battle of the beards? They might be wondering about whose beard is better.
Could be. Epic. This is an epic beard working, by the way.
This is
legit.
You're the first guest I've ever had that's come toe to toe with me, and I'm not even toe to. You're shattering my beardness.
Well, I shaved this morning.
No, I believe that. Actually, we had those watching. You don't know us. We had a meeting like a month apart, and you were clean shaven for that meeting.
I shaved January 1st.
Yeah, your beard it grows quick.
I told you I'm half Sasquatch.
Half Sasquatch.
That's
well,
right. It's good.
So hey, I know you. Those watching may or may not know you. So I'm going to introduce myself real quick, just in case people haven't had a chance to meet me, and then let you introduce yourself.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm Danny. I host Hot Thoughts. I've been doing this now. This is our third season. We're about halfway through it, which is really exciting. I'm a pastor here in the St. Louis region, and I kind of just love having hot wings, spicy conversation, and talking about things about faith that matter in more accessible ways, because sometimes I feel like the church doesn't do that.
Right.
But David,
I go by Dave.
Dave, tell us who you are.
Yeah, Dave. And my mom would say David, right?
Yeah.
But so my name is Dave Wyatt, and I'm a pastor at Centenary United Methodist Church in Bonne Terre, Missouri, which is good earth for any of you who are brushing up on your French. And
is that what Bonne Terre means?
Yeah, good earth. Bonne, bonjour.
Yeah.
Okay. So good earth, Bonne Terre.
Look at that.
I know, good earth.
That's good. I just learned more in this episode than I've ever learned.
Well, thanks for coming, you guys. It's been great to have. So I've been a pastor for 6 years now, and I am a worship leader and a recovering musician, and I love wings. In fact, we're going to talk some more about it tonight, but wings may be some of my favorite food ever.
Yeah, and what kind of connected it? Not even being pastors or the show. The wings is what united us.
Yes, wings have brought us together. Wings bring everyone together.
I think that's true.
Yeah, okay.
Well, cool. So, hey, friends, if you're watching, and we'll have a little bit of a flicker tonight. I try to fix it, but if you're watching, just know that we're not going anywhere. You might see a little flicker on the screen, but we would love you to kind of like, comment, share, let other people be a part of this. If you're watching on my page, you might be watching on Dave's page, your church's page, the Hot Thoughts fan group or Facebook page. The best place to see your comments pop up with us is in the Hot Thoughts page. So not the group, not even the share you did or my page, but if you go into Hot Thoughts, you'll be able to have your comments, because we're going to have a Q&A in a little bit, and that's the best place to have your questions. So if you're watching now, keep watching where you're at, but try to maybe pop open a new tab, hop over there, and kind of like, comment, and then if you have your question prepared, you'll see on the bottom ticker, drop that question in the comments, because that lets us see it. We'll talk about it. I think it's maybe our fifth question.
Okay.
But as the title entails, well, actually, no, sorry. I've been doing this show long enough. I should know this.
Right.
What we do is we start out with a wing. And so I want to start out easy, because we're both Buffalo guys. So we're going to have a little bit of medium buffalo schnook sauce.
Okay.
And we're having popcorn chicken from Fresh Time. So I'm going to pour a little on mine. I'm going to let you pour a little on yours.
All right.
I'm not concerned about this. We should be able to just handle this.
Okay. So,
like pros.
All right. I will confess that I took a primer already tonight. I was already at traditional Thursday night wing night.
Yeah.
And so I'm geared up. I'm ready.
You're ready to go. You've had your wings. You're prepped. So as you digest your wing, I'm gonna let you open. I'll maybe share a little bit. But why the heck are Christians so weird? I mean, that's the title. But why do people think Christians are weird? I mean, we're pastors. People, if you saw my post, like, if you're just a normal person, people are like, I never would have guessed it. So why is the perception of Christians as like these weird, sometimes not nice, whatever it is, why do people think we're weird? Good and bad, maybe.
I mean, good and bad. So I think, and one of the things I would launch into is that we know that there are differences between all people, because we're all unique in our own special way. And then you get into expectations about who people are and what they're supposed to do. So why are Christians, or specifically like why are pastors weird? Is people have this idea that you will do things a certain way. You will do things in a very distinct manner, and they have very crafted ideas about the way you're going to live your life. And so two things happen. Either as soon as they realize that you are doing something that doesn't fit that MO, right? Doesn't fit into what they expect.
Like me wearing skinny jeans.
Right.
Like people are like, pastors don't wear skinny jeans.
Yeah. I mean, I've told you, I ride a motorcycle, and people are like kind of shocked that pastors ride a motorcycle. So, and I have lots of those things. And so those are the things when we kind of go outside of the norm of what a Christian's supposed to do when you're doing something that people don't expect a Christian to do, but also some of the rituals and practices and things that we do as Christians, the people are like, man, that's so weird. Why do you do that? Like, right? I mean, you're going to give up time on any given day to go and, I don't know, go to choir practice or go to youth group or, I don't know, serve on a committee, go spend a Saturday morning out like raking leaves or something doing mission work, go travel outside of the country and take a
or even try to explain to someone what communion is. That might be like the weirdest thing of all time.
Yeah. Well, and that was, I mean, you might know better than I, but that was like originally one of the things that like early church faced criticism because they thought
cannibals, right?
Yeah, they thought they were cannibals. They were like, killing babies or something. Yeah. So yeah, Christians are weird. They do wild and crazy things. So we do have a lot of rituals that people don't necessarily understand. I mean, you could say sitting around and eating hot wings and having a theology discussion is pretty weird when all things considered. But
yeah, well, I like the title of this and the conversation in general because I think in multiple ways. I do think Christians are a little weird in a good way and a bad way. And I actually called my mom before I got on this to tell her to say, I'm gonna quote you in this.
Okay.
Because I remember her telling me early on, I told her, I was like, what was it, like 10, 11, 12, something. She said I was somewhere in that age bracket. And I don't know why, maybe it seems like an overshare. I don't know why my mom was sharing this or not, but she was like, well, I didn't really want to date a Christian guy because I thought they were all like nerds and squares. And like we talk about like Christians being weird because they do a lot of things, but that was my perception is like they're just not cool people. Like they're not people I would ever want to hang out with. They're not, and that's sometimes the tension I run up on is like I'll smoke a cigar with someone. We talked about this, like we'll go do wings at the bar and people are like, why would you be here? And there is this kind of, and we'll get to this in the world of the world conversation later, but there is this kind of assumption that Christians like aren't very fun people.
Yeah.
And so even when I say like why are Christians weird, sometimes people just ask like why aren't they any fun?
Right.
That's the assumption people have about
call them fun suckers in our house.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean that's a good question though. Like what is it about Christianity or what is it about other Christians that makes people think that we're like incapable of or against somehow having normalcy in our lives? Like I do like to go and hang out on Thursday nights. We go down to the bar and grill and have wings. And I like to go out and ride my motorcycle. I like to go to baseball games. And I like to watch TV shows that are, pop culture kind of things. I mean, I'll confess to everyone now, I'm a huge Eminem fan. I mean, I'm sorry.
I'll give you an okay. That makes me so happy. I didn't know that about you until this moment, but that makes me so happy.
But see, those are the things. It's like that just because you are living a Christian lifestyle doesn't somehow mean that you are incapable of or against fun. But there are certain things, right, that we hold as expectations of one another. And I think how those things are defined is the thing that confuses people so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not so much exclusionary. It might be actually more inclusionary. But like they're like, these are the things that we call our distinctives, not the things that make you a terrible person.
Right.
But sometimes we've used them in that way, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, so I teased this, and before we get to the question, I bought this the other day. Sweet Baby Ray's buffalo wing sauce.
You make me laugh, dude.
I don't think it's spicy, but I've heard it's pretty good.
You don't think it's very spicy?
I don't think so. I put on something for my wife, but I think it's good. And just so you know, you're about to go down the gauntlet of spice as we get further. So
listen, I just while you're taking that in there, I'm kind of thinking a little bit more too as we're wrapping up wings.
Ooh,
I mean, do you think that that people think that Christians are weird because This is no joke. Because we do things like this and we think it's fun. Like, do you remember when you were in youth group as a kid and you're like, we're gonna eat like peanut butter through a pantyhose or something?
Right.
You know, so we think we're gonna make something fun out of everything, but when it comes to identifying with our faith, that's not something to joke around with. But still, can you have a lot of fun, like eating hot wings?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is interesting. Like, I think it's, and I like this. You're throwing it around. Do you want to host this from now? You might have to like take this over.
I really don't.
No, I'm just kidding. But I wonder. That's
more wings.
I'm pretty done with wings. 3 seasons. I've had a lot of wings in my life. That's a good question. Like, I do wonder that because, like, I think about like, did you have Young Life when you grew up? Did you guys? Were you?
Yeah, but I didn't do that.
Okay, so I was kind of a part of that, and they were big games people.
Right.
And really like the silly games. Like it was, and I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of fun, but a lot of my friends were kind of like, why are you licking peanut butter on one side of a plexiglass?
Right.
And so, but I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think sometimes we go above and beyond to embrace, and maybe this is that, embrace the shtick. It's hey, we want to like have these conversations, but it maybe does do us a disservice sometimes.
Maybe, but also, we're going to get to this, but maybe it's the kind of thing that we have determined is a resource for us as Christians. You follow, and I think we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, so I will throw.
Good.
It's pretty good actually. Yeah, I think it's better than this one. The Schnucks one is not bad. It's just not my style, really.
This one was spicier though.
Yeah,
definitely.
So the question I have for you, and I'm actually going to hop off camera, so it's going to be on you. Because I'm going to try to fix this flicker.
Okay.
But you're going to be talking, which is what we do anyway. So what does it mean to be in the world and not of the world? Because I know we've talked about, you and I have had that conversation, especially in terms of the weirdness of Christians and how sometimes we misappropriate that phrase. Sometimes we don't understand what it means. So what does it mean for us to be that?
Yeah. I don't know. So I was going to say, so if this goes south with him working on the camera and this, he doesn't come back, just remember it was a fun time and tell your friends. So in the world, but not of it. This is one of those fascinating phrases, at least for me, because I'm thinking in terms of what do we, so what is the world? And you're going to ask that question. And it's just going to be everything that is around us, everything that we are part of. Everything that we encounter, just all levels. So if we're going to be in that world, but not of it, meaning we're not going to subject to it. We're not going to let the world dictate how we do things or what it is that we're trying to accomplish. It's not going to dictate our attitudes, our beliefs. It's not going to tell us who we should hang out with. It's not going to tell us even what's right and wrong because the world's going to lead us astray. On those things. So God, of course, theologically, right, this is the thing. God's going to be the one that's going to give us the insight through the power of the Spirit to tell us which way we're supposed to go. So how do we be in the world then but not of it? And that is to understand clearly those boundaries and yet avoid any situation where you can get kind of tripped up. And I know that that's a little bit of a challenge for some people. I'm just going to put it out there that way. It was a challenge for me. And I know Danny's away from camera, but I'll just tell you, I had certainly had times in my life where I was in the world and I was definitely of it. I was all in. And it's a reckless kind of place to be. And part of it is that you don't have any direction. So as I have found ways to be in the world but not of the world, I've had to understand what my boundaries were. I mean, maybe to use an analogy of how much hot sauce you can eat on your wings, as opposed to knowing where the limits are, or maybe swimming out in deep waters. You got to know how far into the deep end you can go, and still be able to maintain yourself, be able to take care of yourself. And so when I'm thinking about how to be in the world and not of the world, it's that kind of mentality. And I will say this just with an asterisk is to say it, and it's not easy. As Christians, just as humans, we are bombarded with things that are trying to tell us that the world is going to make you better, this product or this activity or this person is going to make you more popular, more wealthy, more more important, more influential. It's going to make you somehow better looking. It's going to give you all of these advantages. And the world is selling that to you. It's selling it to me. And those temptations are just constant. Where have you been, man?
I mean, you got the most unfair guest experience of all time.
What was I talking about?
I ran away for a while.
You need to go away, dude. So anyhow, so all of those things, though, the world is just pushing them. I'm talking about the external influence, right?
Yeah,
The world, the things that are going to tempt you. And friends, they are so tempting. I'm just going to own it. They're all around you, and who doesn't want those things at some point in their life? And the best solution for us to be in the world, not of it, is to draw our identity from God.
Yeah, I think there's so many, and you probably said this already.
Yeah, you wouldn't know you weren't here.
there are a lot of things that compete for us to draw our identity from, right? Like things that my identity is an athlete. I was just talking to, I actually really oddly ran into a guy that I haven't seen since undergrad. And I beat him apparently in a 3-on-3 tournament in intramurals. And we haven't seen each other since. But our conversation was, he was like, I used to draw my identity from basketball. And it's like, now I'm a pastor, you know what I mean? And so we sometimes think our identity is these things that have nothing to do with who we were created to be, but they're like our talents.
Yeah.
Or maybe sometimes our passions, like, because I'm passionate about sports, but that's not my identity.
Right.
But we do confuse identity with like affinity, maybe like the things that we like, the things that we want to do.
Yeah.
And our identity is much more deep than just like, hey, my identity isn't hot wings, my identity isn't basketball. My identity is not even really only a pastor, right? Like my identity is so much deeper than those things.
And so that would be, kind of that's funny. So what makes a Christian weird? What makes a pastor weird is like dovetails into that statement, because then you're saying, so what is the identity of a Christian? What do people think and expect for Christians to be? And are Christians able to be in the world and not of it? And then this is when it snags up on us, right? Then when people set a precedent for Christians and they say, hey, listen, we expect you to act this way.
Right.
But look at you getting sucked in, and now you're of the world, or at least we perceive you to be of the world. And so, wow, that's heavy.
So I'm going to stop you there because it does lead into our next question.
Does it really?
And you're about to get baptized through the thought sauce. So this is our own brand of sauce from the show.
How's that being marketed?
Well, not well, because I'm the lead marketer and salesman. But my good friend Stephen Reed, he works for a company, Homemade, like RFH Peppers is the name of it. It's in Webster Groves. He's been doing it's passion project. But you can buy this, I think probably on the Hot Thoughts website. But if you go to RFH Peppers and look for him, you'll find it. He makes this, but he makes a ton of them. It's really, really good. But try this. But what I ask all of my guests to do is to tell us what you think about it, because it is our sauce.
Okay, so as I'm putting this on here, I just want to tell you, the whole time you're talking, I can't help but think about the fact, like, remember in Talladega Nights when he's like got like Fig Newtons on the windshield, like product placement?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking about right now, is a product placement, right?
All I do is piss excellence. What do you think? You like it? It's got a little kick to it.
Yeah, but it's like smoky.
Yeah, very smoky.
All right, listen, friends, you guys need to go out and get this.
It's so it's got fruit in it. It's like peachy. But it's really good. So
Love it.
It's a little spicy, but it's got some good fruit to it. So, but the question that I want to dive into,
all right, that's good,
as we kind of unpack that, because when we talk about being in the world, not of the world, we do, I think, unintentionally, the church being we, create an us versus them mentality. And so where have you seen us do that unintentionally? And I mean, we've even had this conversation, like that.
Yeah.
We unintentionally create good guys and bad guys. You know what I mean? Like, and so how do you think, and I don't, like, you don't have to dive into any one topic, but where has, because I think like being in the world and of the world is a really great pursuit. It's a great thing to, I mean, it's in Scripture, so I think it guides us. But where have we misappropriated it unintentionally to go, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy?
Yeah. So it's like, this is going to be a heavy statement. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like hot thoughts, hot right here. If you think of it in these terms, that when we make the statement, in the world but not of the world, we are essentially saying that the world is against God, that it's against Christians.
Yeah.
And the reality is that the creation, God's creation, all things that are in the world are at some level part of the goodness of God. Now, the misuse of those things, right, could be a problem. I mean, so please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that, drug addiction or pornography or something along those lines, that those are things that are of God. But, we can look at that, and I don't know, I want to go in this direction, but pornography is not something that is something to be celebrated. But the intimacy and relationship between couples is that is that's beautiful. That's God created that, so that's
right.
God's creation being used well as opposed. So we have this idea of us versus them, where we will say, okay, so the world is out there and it's going to get you, and you should isolate yourself and stay completely away from any of those bad things. And then you have to stop and go, wait a minute, God made all
right.
things. God made all the people that we're going to be around, and it is God's world, and it's God's world to be celebrated. We can live in that.
Right.
And so we create like these hostilities where, like, somebody might say, well, you pastors, Christians, you can't go to a bar, right?
Right.
You can't. And I'm like, time out. There's nothing that says that the bar isn't a bad place. Over drinking, alcoholism, those type of inappropriate behaviors that might stem from coming out of a bar, those are bad, but those can come from anywhere. It's not the bar's fault, right?
Right.
It's still the people, and the people are the ones who are sinful. So we should look at those things and say, how do we say to avoid an us versus them? I'm thinking it's just to remember that the Creator is still involved in all the things that we're part of.
Yeah, and I think about these things, even like alcoholism, or that's a thing that like my family, it's like been a part of my family's lineage from day one, right? And to your point, like the bar didn't create it, right? Like, and the bar didn't perpetuate it, though it could have. But one of the things you say is like, we're not against alcoholic people.
Right.
We're not against people that struggle with this thing, right? Like, but how do we come alongside them? But the thing that to realize is like that's something that maybe we don't look highly upon because it makes us less of who God created us to be. It's like it's not because I think of my dad, for example, right? Like a struggle with alcoholism, not like a bad person,
Right.
But I think he realized when he started his journey to sobriety was like, hey, like alcoholism and the overuse of it draws me away from the person God created me to be. Mm-hmm. And the church, at least my perspective, and maybe, we might have to just invite my dad on here. I don't know how to get him on here. But I would say they used him, in my perspective, as like the poster child of recovery before he was ready to have recovered.
Yeah.
And that creates an us versus them. Like, because we make this binary of like, you're good or you're bad.
Yeah.
You're clean or you're not. You're sober or you're not. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think us versus them is, and to your point, like we're created in God's image. We're all part of God's creation, and understanding we're all in pursuit of being made into the likeness of God.
Right.
And so like you might be farther along than I am, but we're still all in the likeness of God.
Right.
And we're being sanctified, right? And like this idea shouldn't be like you have more of your crap together so you're a better person.
Right.
And I think sometimes that's what us versus them's
Us
us.
versus them, yeah. So I told you this, but for all of you who are out there, I have been clean and sober for almost 17 years. May 17th, be 17 years.
Okay, so that's like just around the corner.
I know, right? It's awesome. And so I battled alcoholism, and I battled drug addiction and various different drugs. Was playing the music scene in Texas, and I just got wrapped up. And praise God for pulling me out of that. But here's the point: is number one, it's been a very useful tool in ministry. But the thing I think applies here is that I have asked the question: how much longer do I have to carry this title? How much longer do I have to be an alcoholic? How much longer do I have to be the guy who was a drug user?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I remember being in ministry after I'd been in ministry for like 7 years. And I remember somebody actually saying to me, it came up in the meeting that there were concerns you were going to fall off the wagon. And what were they
About
going
you?
to do? About me.
Okay.
Right. And so, and at that point in time, I'd been in recovery 10 years, and it's
Okay.
like, wait a minute. So you're still questioning,
Right.
like, how long do I have to carry this? And it definitely is something like, when do we embrace the fact that when people are forgiven, like, they're forgiven? I mean, that's
good.
forgetting is, but so us versus them can be wrapped up in that forgiveness thing. So,
Well, this just so I'll put question 1 back up on the screen. Like, when I say, why are Christians so weird? People would be like, well, you're a pastor, so like you have been in recovery. That would, like, people think Christians and pastors can't have ever had any of those issues too, which is wrong. Right? I mean, that's what makes I bet you're a better pastor than most people because you've experienced life.
No, it's just different. I mean, thanks.
Yeah, I hate to say it. I don't mean it in like a pejorative way.
There are parts of being in ministry, and that's the thing that each of us, and again, all this stuff ties together. It's such a cool topic. But how do we be in the world and not of it? Well, I can live in the world as a recovering addict and alcoholic, and I can even go into the deep, dark places with people and still then be in ministry. And I mean, let's face it, talking to another alcoholic is probably going to be a little easier.
Okay.
So as a pastor, being able to have that conversation, I consider it a gift. It's a blessing. God took everything that I was, everything that I had, everything that I've been, and said, we're going to use it for ministry. And that meant all the good, bad stuff. It meant all the things that make me a weird Christian. So what does it mean to be a pastor? I said, well, I didn't say I was a good pastor. I just said I was a pastor.
Yeah, you're a pastor.
Right?
But I do think, like, and I don't want to undersell us because I know we've only really got to know each other recently, but I have a great place in my heart for people that like have experienced life. Sometimes I think what makes pastors weird or Christians weird is they haven't experienced any life. You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes you can tell the greater story of hope when you've experienced the necessity for grace,
So even that question, which one was it? 3 that we talked about, in the world but not of the world.
2, yeah.
Right. So isn't that sort of too a message for Christians? Like, I'm not gonna throw shade here at anybody, but you can't live in a cave your whole life and expect to really live out your faith. You have to live out your faith in the world. Just don't, but not to be of the world, right?
Right. It's the same thing as like we say you can't live in say really progressive people or really conservative people. If you're in your echo chamber, you'll never hear anything other than your echo chamber, right?
Right, so totally.
And so if you're in your cave, your echo chamber, whatever, you're never going to see anything outside of it because you've been completely shielded from anything else other than that.
It is a beautiful world. I mean, there's so much out there. It's amazing, right? So you get to enjoy it a little bit, I guess. And I mean, I'll confess too, it's like I'm in church history, so we're studying the monastics, and I had to throw that in.
That's good. Well, I appreciate it. You seem like you like seminary more than I like seminary.
No, I don't. I just
I thought seminary was pretty good.
I'm just paying for it right now, so I have to like it.
Yeah, it's like it's floating around.
Psychological.
That's really funny. Well,
That's awesome.
I'll be praying for you to make through it. So this is maybe my favorite part, favorite topic, this conversation, but this is my favorite part of the show where we let people ask questions. And we don't always get them, but if you have them, put them in the comments. And what we'll do is we'll take this sauce, which I think is appropriately named. It's the salvation sauce, the Holy Ghost.
Nice.
I think it's pretty spicy. But if you have a question, drop it in the comments. If you don't, we'll move on to the next one. So it's pretty juicy. I just spent a lot out on accident.
Okay.
I haven't used it in a while. This one's gone on. I kind of retired it.
A little bit?
Yeah, go a little slow. Kill the bottle, man. You can put the rest of it on there.
That's probably not going to happen.
That's definitely a kick up from what we've had.
Is it? Because like my lips burning a little bit from the last one. Not a lot, just a little bit. All right, did I put?
So you like hot? I think you're good. You like hot wings or do you like wings?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, let me know because it gets hotter.
Here's the thing. You know what I like doing? I like sitting down. Are we going to talk about what we do on Thursday nights? What I do?
I would love to. Yeah. Do you want to? That's actually. So we don't have any questions. Do you want to share a little bit what you do on Thursday nights?
Yeah, but I'm eating. So.
Well, I'll talk for a second. Right. So as he's chewing, I will say, so this is a great opportunity for anyone that, and we don't know everything. Actually, we don't know a sliver of anything, mostly. Exactly. But Truth. We would love to just answer any questions too. So if you have anything that's like, hey, why do Christians, I mean, I referenced early on, like people used to think Christians were cannibals because of communion. Like, why do you baptize this? Or why do you do that? Or why are Christians really, really mean? Or why do I feel like they're bigoted? Or why, like, whatever the question, like, please ask it. There's nothing off limits. I think we'll field anything. Yeah. And while we wait for some of those to come in, if they come in, you do have a really cool thing, Dave, about what you do with your kind of community. Kind of similar to this, but just without the mics and the screen that cuts out every little bit.
The mics are all hidden. And by the way, he was saying if you have things that you want to ask and you're not comfortable just sharing it out loud, you can contact us directly and we'll be happy to answer those questions.
Right.
And actually more I'll send you to someone who knows. I'll give you Danny's phone number. And so I told Danny this, but we started a couple years ago because there were 50-cent wings at Hub's Pub down in Bonne Terre that we
50-cent
wings.
That's pretty good.
I know, it's pretty good, right? So 60-cent for the boneless ones, though. But I'm old school. I'm
a bone-in guy.
I'm a bone-in guy.
This is an aberration for me. To go boneless.
But you know what? The sauce counts, right? So we started going with my wife and I, and then one of my really good friends and his wife and the four of us just went for wing night, and we were sitting, we were hanging out. It was a really good time. And then we had someone come to visit the church, and we didn't really know them all that well. They had been there, I guess, for a while. I shouldn't say that they had come to visit the church, but they hadn't been as connected maybe to the church. And so it was like, hey, why don't you guys come to wing night with us? And so it was this great opportunity then to begin to have conversation with people who we didn't really know all that well. And so as new people came to the church, I was inviting them to come and hang out for wings, just meet us for wing night. And it was open-ended, right? It was come when you want, don't come, whatever
right.
Works out. And so it ended up being just thing that it was very organic, and we were just going every week and just started telling people, I'll be there at 5 o'clock. We're asking them for wings. But it began to morph, and then it was more intentional. And now when I have this is my favorite part, when I have weddings and do the premarital care stuff, right? The first meeting is Thursday night at
I love that.
Night, right? Because you want to get to know people, like in the world but not of it. So we can go sit and have a conversation about their wedding instead of sitting in my stuffy office, right? Which is very nice. I shouldn't say that, but instead of sitting in my office, we can actually go sit and hang out and have conversation where they're comfortable, I'm comfortable, and they can see I'm a normal guy. I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not weird. I mean, So
that does actually transition really well into what I think is a next good question that I'll put up, and we'll go no sauce on this one, and so we'll ask it, we'll talk, but then we'll sauce. So we will do it, but we're not going to start with it. So it's the extra hot habanero, El Yucatano.
Okay.
So that's where I love this one. It's my favorite Mexican sauce.
All right.
But what you said, it does kind of lead into this, which is like, why do you personally care about the good news? And the reason I say it leads into that is, like, this isn't like a job where you sit in an office in your steeple and say, like, hey, come to me.
Yeah.
You're not trying to hide from people and say you need to get right, and I'm like, I have it all together, I'm going to fix you.
Right.
But I think you probably, and I'm making an assumption here, but I think I'm right in this assumption, that you believe there's something good about the good news that you've maybe experienced personally that you want to share with other people. And so why do you personally care about it? And then this isn't in the question, but how does that impact how you practice your ministry as a pastor?
Yeah. So those are some really good questions. So the good news, I think, just number one, I think it's just important in a general sense. So that being said, I think the idea that I got to put this into words the right way. Here's what first came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
No one comes into my office to talk to me about a problem that they're encountering in life that essentially happened in my office. every problem that I encounter comes to me from out in the world.
Right.
And so if I'm going to talk about the good news isn't something that just manifests in my office. The good
Right.
news has to manifest in the world that we're in, right? So I figure if we're going to tell people about the good news, it's going to have to be out.
In the world.
It's going to have to be out in the world. I mean, I almost want to say it's almost, man, is this on? It's almost like it's not as good of news if it's not someplace where you can do something with it,
Right.
right? So I mean,
Let's go.
we can have outstanding, passionate worship in our big, shiny, happy steeples, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't translate to the person who's oppressed or broken or hurting or homeless
Right.
or help, right? If it doesn't translate that way, then I'm not sure how good that news is.
Right. No, that's really good. And I'll let you get a little bit of this, and I'll share my thoughts. Is so like we use the word, and you correct me if I'm wrong because you're in seminary currently. Ecclesia, right? That's the church, right?
The church, yeah. Good
gathered-
job, man. You remembered that.
Yeah, it's this Greek word, the gathered body, right? It never means what we say it means. It's not this. It's not
No.
like it's not. And I say this because you don't know this, but we're in a church building right now. It's not coming to a church building. It's not like singing songs, 3 songs, a message of being out. But when you look at it, when it's used, it was always the gathered group of humans talking about life. And they probably sang songs of praise. They probably had the apostles' teaching, if you look into Acts 2, right? Like they're learning in that. But they're just living life together. And what you said is like the good news happens outside the church office. I think the good news is shared outside the church in general. I mean, you look at the way the church in Acts, if you even go like Galatians is the first book written, right? It's the first church. Like you see like Galatians, it's like they're starting and they're not like, well, we have our building at 1601 Woodstone, or like they're not going to the mayor
No.
of Galatia. They're just in homes and they're around tables and they're probably underground and they're sharing the good news with people that desperately need it. And they're not saying come and see. They're saying like, I want to come to you and just share something so great. The way Jesus did,
Yeah.
which was without expectation and without qualification. Like he ate with
Yeah.
sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes. He ate with the people his culture said no to.
Right.
And our churches are now like, well, I would like you to come in 9 and 10:45.
Yeah.
If you like traditional, please come at 9, and maybe
Right.
wear a suit. But that's not what the church was ever about.
No. And man, that's wild. As you're saying that, I'm thinking, what in the good news says anything about what it is that you just described as far as the church goes, right? I mean, like, what? So we're thinking, I'm like, what is the good news? Maybe we'd say John 3:16.
Yeah.
All right, God so loved the world, His only begotten Son, whoever believed in Him not perish, everlasting life. And I'm thinking, there's nothing in there about coming and gathering for the church on Sunday morning. There's
Yeah.
nothing about sort of small group meetings. There's not. The good news is that God sent His Son to die in your place to pay for my place, to pay for the sins that
Mostly.
I can't
Bibles.
possibly overcome. My sins are bigger than your
Yeah.
sins.
So we'll say this though, and I think John 3:17 is even better good
Dude,
news.
someone just told me this today,
Yeah,
man.
it's so good.
Yeah, but the idea then to say,
Well, so tell it to someone who doesn't know that wrote. Why do you think John 3:17 is more good news? Or I'll say maybe why. Like it's, and I'm going to butcher the phrase.
Okay,
It's
go
that He
ahead.
didn't just come. So it's God loved the world that He saved the world. 16, 17. He didn't come to condemn the world, but to love the world. He didn't come to like cast him out, or didn't come to judge him, but came to love him. Right? Like, and that's what makes it good news. It's like God didn't come to condemn us, but came to love us.
well, I'm just fascinated. I guess sometimes revelations happen. Holy Spirit's awesome sometimes, man. Must be the habanero sauce.
Right. I think
Yeah.
sometimes hot wings lead directly to Revelation.
Revelation. So I'm thinking about
This last one will blow your mind.
Well, we're asking the question, what was, like, why is the good news important? And I'm thinking the good news is important for helping people understand the forgiveness of God and how the pieces have been put back in place. How the things that the us and them that we just talked
Yeah.
about, how that is completely destroyed.
Right.
in the sacrifice of Jesus. And
Yeah.
and yet here we are trying to put it back together,
Yeah.
right? We're trying to weave it back together, going, we're going to get inside of our huddles, and we're going to say, we're going to be different, we're going to be weird. And the world is saying, you know what, that's fine. We'll put you in boxes if you want.
Yeah.
And we'll call you weird and strange and all those kind of things, because all you want to do is condemn us and push us away. But our response should be all the time, I, a disciple of Jesus Christ, did not come to condemn. Neither did Christ. Did not come to condemn
Right.
the world, but to save it.
So I had a really good question. So you'll see it on the screen. Hopefully, we have a little bit of an obstruction, but hopefully you'll see it.
Okay.
But so it's, what were the circumstances when you both first felt the impact of the good news personally? So,
Man.
and I was actually I was listening to a friend's podcast. Maybe he's listening. Matthew Moore, outstanding podcaster, and he sent me like a little soundbite about kind of his born again moment and how it felt a little fabricated, but the assurance that came kind of outside of that, and there's going to be much more around this podcast. So I think I don't want to throw anything out for him, but it was really good. It sparked this for me. I started thinking when I listened to it, I was like, man, like when did I know that? And for me, it was, I feel much more Wesleyan, like John Wesley.
Yeah.
That like, I feel like I was a Christian for a long time, and I was like living this life where I was like, I think I'm kind of crushing it, but like I always felt like a little emptiness. And then in my own moment on the sea, like I had this like moment where I was like, oh, like I actually feel like this is actually real for me. Like,
Yeah.
and it just came in college. I was like, you know what? The good news is that I don't have to keep trying really hard. I don't have to keep doing more. But what we see Jesus saying is just like, rest in me more.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that sometime in college, and it like radically changed. And I still wrestle with that because I'm such an achiever. Like I just want, like, I feel like in my personal life I want to do more, and I always have to rest in like Jesus being like, just be more. You don't have to do more. So,
Right.
but what for you? What would you say?
Man, so I told you earlier I was a cradle Methodist. So
Yep.
And I did the confirmation thing. And I don't want to undermine any of the work that I did when I was younger, but my experience really came understanding the good news was not when I got sober, but it was like 6 months later, and I was on a retreat, walk to Emmaus. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah,
with
so
walk
I was
to
just
Emmaus.
talking to someone about
Yeah,
this.
so
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I was on an Emmaus walk, and I remember just coming out of this sobriety now, like 6 months in, right? And I remember this moment of understanding, and I was asking a pastor that was with me, and I was crying, of course, but I was saying, I don't understand how someone who's as broken and messed up as I am could be forgiven, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm looking at the 10 Commandments, and I got, like, most of them checked off here, you know? Like, I don't want to say I was a bad person, but I was a bad person.
Yeah.
I mean, I did things that,
That you felt separated you.
yeah, they were destructive to me.
Yeah.
They were destructive to other people, to my family, to my friends. I mean, just
Yeah.
it was bad. And I remember thinking, how can God love somebody and forgive somebody
Yeah.
like that? And that was the moment where I think I understand what the good news actually meant. Was that, and I would say, you know, for God so loved the world, I would say, for God so loved Dave,
Yeah.
that He gave His only begotten Son. And so that personal approach to it was what hit me. And then that was the sense of saying, God saying, as broken as you are, I'm taking all that stuff and we're going to do ministry.
Wow.
Right?
Mm.
So that was good news for me.
That's good. Yeah, and I think like that you weren't shamed for that, but like because I think that's one of the things I appreciate the most about you is like your past is not, you don't do what you do now in spite of it. You do it like as an outpouring of what God speaks through who you have been. Like
I hope so.
it's like I think like it's erased and that like you're not judged for it.
Right.
But it's actually fuel to the fire of like the passion that leads you, I think, in some way,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for you in that, but I think that's what makes you a compelling person to be leading a congregation.
But I think you can come out of that from any understanding. Like if anyone can ask that question of when did you really fully experience the good news, and some people would say, oh, well, I did confirmation when I was in 7th grade and I gave my life to Jesus. And that's very important to our spiritual walk.
Yeah.
But when is the day you really understood what it meant to be forgiven? When is the day you understood that for God so loved the world that I'm looking in the camera, that you know.
That's good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
No, that really does. And I want to shift actually. So we're going to go to our last question, our last sauce, because it's almost the other side of the coin, and that like because I think that's so good, right? Like that it is for God to love Dave, Danny,
Right.
Kim,
Yeah.
like Annie, Carol, whoever. Like God loved that person.
Right.
God love that person. And so it's so much that. But sometimes we get on the quote unquote inside, and this is what we see Jesus fighting, is like the insiders then like kind of messed it up a little bit.
Right.
The insiders, it became only about the insiders. And the way I watch that now in the evangelical movement, not the evangelical church, but like us as I think we're all evangelicals.
Right,
we want to share the good news.
It's given such a bad rap.
Yeah, it's a bad
evangelical. That's all.
Yeah, it's not as bad a word as we made it to be.
Right.
But so this idea that we're all supposed to be evangelical, which means to
Right.
just share the good news, right?
Right.
To evangelize is share the good news. Like I'm going to ask you this question, and I guess I'm not going to give you. I don't want to like feed too much into it, but I'm going to say that sometimes we have bad motivations in that. So what should motivate evangelism? Does that make sense?
No. Hold on.
Well, let's we'll sauce real
What
quick.
should motivate evangelism? So, like you told me that we're doing. It was like the other side of the coin. So now I'm trying to.
Well, don't think too much. Never think too much about what I say.
No, I'm thinking all way too much.
Well, so when I say the other side of the coin, because we say like God loved me, so that should matter. But now because God loves me, sometimes people are like, well, now you have to go convert 10 people, and it becomes a pyramid scheme. So what should motivate our telling of the story? Like, because you
I got you.
found the good news,
Yeah.
and now you perpetuate it.
Is this going to hurt me?
Oh, it's not going to be great.
Did you put a lot on? Is that too much?
I did great. That's a lot.
Is it?
Yeah.
I got to drive home, man.
It's pretty hot.
Crap, it's hot.
I'm glad you watched them all. It's pretty hot, right?
It is. I had a friend tell me before I came on, don't swear.
I saw that. I saw it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of pepper in the back of the throat. This is one I try not to use a lot because it's not pleasant.
Did you do that to John?
I didn't want to kill John, so I went light on.
All right. What should motivate you to do evangelism? So,
And speak for you.
okay, so let's see. Like you're talking about the insiders and outsiders. I'm thinking, yeah, that's absolutely true. So I feel sometimes that evangelism maybe comes out of obligation, right? So, like you said, a pyramid scheme where it's like you were sharing this with somebody, and then they're supposed to share it with 10 other people, and dude, that was hot.
It's hot.
Like I'm having trouble thinking.
That's the whole point of the show. Oh. It'll get you.
I'll tell you this. If you're going to do evangelism, the motivation needs to be fully and truly about helping people understand that they are loved, that they are beloved children of God, and that God desires for them to have a full life,
Yeah.
right? And those are great, great churchy things to say. You're welcome.
Yeah. So evangelism though isn't like, and so this is kind of the. I ask a lot of questions with agenda, but so like we're not trying to like build our. We're not going butts in seats. We're not like we don't evangelize for like some spiritual commission.
I do.
But but we do it because we believe. This is why. Oh, sorry, everyone. These mics pick up a lot. You heard that burp, and I'm so sorry. But I think that's why one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you is because of your story.
Right.
Like, you probably only evangelize, and I put that in quotes for, I don't really know why, but because you felt it personally. Like, you just want more people to know the good news you experienced.
Yeah, I just want to tell people about Jesus. I mean, I think that's the whole crux. And, part of it is this, and I'm going to say it this way, and it's going to sound selfish, and probably is a little bit. Well, there's a part of me that consistently hears from people about how life is so hard, and they're unhappy, and they don't have enough this and have enough that. And I'm saying to them, listen, I have talked to you before about this, and I want you to hear this again. God loves you exactly the way that you are. You are perfect in every way. God has given you everything that you need to live a full life. Stop chasing, the neighbors. Stop, trying to keep up with the Joneses, that kind of thing. So, I mean, you think through the 10 Commandments and those kind of things. Like, don't covet. Why? Because it makes you unhappy, right?
Right.
Don't steal. Why? Well, because it's not yours, and it's going to make you unhappy.
Right. A lot of these rules, are not like things to like make life suck.
Right.
But they're like, hey, this might actually help you be more happy.
Well, isn't it the truth too about the good news about evangelizing? What we're telling people is the good news isn't to come out and say, hey, I want to give you, I want you to come and learn about Jesus so you can follow all these rules.
Right. Yeah, it's not
It has
about that.
nothing to do with that. It's about, I want you to come follow Jesus so you can have wings with me on Thursday night.
Right.
Right?
Which Jesus was almost never like, hey, you should do more of the rule following. He was just like, hey, go. I think he was also like, hey, these people that are like rule followers are kind of messing it
Do
up.
them. Mm-hmm.
He was like, oh, just like hang out with me more. Like, I'm trying to think of the story. I just preached on it. It was the woman. She like comes up on Jesus and like grabs his robe and is healed. She's bleeding for 12 years.
Yeah.
And what Jesus says at the end is like, and we don't know that she's sinful or not, but he's like, just go forward and live in peace. That's essentially what he does for everyone. He doesn't give them a checklist. He just says, go forward and live in peace.
And so, I mean, think about the instructions that Jesus actually gives are actually pretty simple. It's come follow me and go and make disciples, or go forward, go and sin no more, go in peace. Right? Those are all the things that Jesus, none of it has to do with the rules. In fact, the people who are following the rules are the ones he says,
You're probably messing up more.
You're missing it. This is not about the us and them. You're missing the point.
Yeah.
So I ate a second wing that had some of that sauce on it. It was really stupid.
Yeah, it came back at you. Don't do it. So we're in our final time here. Mm-hmm. And so usually what I do is, you have up to 6 minutes, but you can do it in 30 seconds. But you're my guest. I'm always honored to have people like you on and just have interesting conversations. And so I would just say, like, you have the floor. I mean, you got a few minutes. You got 30 seconds. You got 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Like, what would you say to the people out there watching? Like, if you could say anything, like, what would be your thing? You could promote your church. You could just share good news. You could say, hey, I have a podcast I'm launching. Like, whatever you got. But what do you got for us? And kind of, the floor is yours.
So I get to preach a little bit or something? What are you talking about?
Sure. You have now 5 minutes.
5 minutes, because you've taken
I introed for a minute. So you have 5 minutes.
Man, this is tragic. So, my goodness. We've said so much about the things that I would really want to say, of just about how we're going to go about living our lives, how we're going to do things, how we can take the things that are part of us who are kind of broken and that really need some polish,
Yeah.
But I think the gist of it is, if you understand the good news of Jesus Christ in a way that you can embrace in your everyday life,
Yeah.
I want to encourage you to go out into the world and live it.
Yeah.
Don't pretend like it only happens inside the four walls of the church.
Right.
In fact, and please don't misunderstand this, I love the church. The Church of Jesus Christ is fantastic. The institution that is the church has some opportunities.
Yeah.
And some of those opportunities are the fact that sometimes we feel like we're insiders because we're in the church. So I would say, go out into the world. I want you to come and worship and be refueled. And the church's address is 27 Bonne Terre, Missouri.
Bonne Terre, which means from the earth. Good earth.
Good earth.
Good earth.
I want you to come to that. I want you to go to Bible study, and I want you to go to a small group, and I want you to come to Danny's church and worship. I want you to go through all those things and make that a part of your routine. But not so that you can just end there. I want you to take that and refuel and go out into the world. Go out to wing night, invite some of your friends, and just hang out and have dinner and talk to them and just say, how's life going? How are things going for you? And in the middle of that conversation, when they begin to ask, Danny, why are you so stinking happy all the time, right? Why is your marriage so healthy? How is it that you guys get along so well? Why are your kids so respectful of you and so normal, well-adjusted? And to which you could say, do you have children?
Oh, yeah, 2 of them. We brainwash them.
Yeah,
No,
well, I was going to say they're brainwashed. I say, people say your children are very well-behaved, and I say, those aren't my children.
Right.
So anyhow, so we have these mysterious things that people think about us, and all I'm saying is go out into the world and share the good news of Jesus and the way that you live, and just don't pretend like it only happens in a vacuum, right? There you go. Was that 5 minutes? Do I still have 3 minutes?
You had some time, but that I would say
good.
That's so my big hill that I've been dying on lately is I think the good news happens in the context of friendship, and that's a lot of what I hear you saying.
Amen,
like,
man.
Just be friends with people, share with them life, in the rhythm of life, share the story that there's a God that loves them, like beyond belief, and without condition.
Yeah.
And that's what
In
this
life,
whole story
right?
is.
That's the thing, right? In life.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, friends, Dave, thank you for being with us.
This is awesome.
I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation. I saw some cool conversation in the comments. I actually popped onto my Facebook and hopped around. I saw there were some comments that didn't make it into the stream, so bummed about that. But maybe you and I can go back in and try to kind of address those later. But this is a lot of fun. Yeah. We'll keep the Hot Thoughts train rolling. Next week, this was my favorite episode we've had. Next week, we're diving into maybe my least favorite because I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about cancel culture. I don't know about it. I don't know what we're going to say.
Straight up, dude, I wouldn't tackle that with no.
Well, that's why you're not my guest.
You're darn right, man. I'm not going anywhere near that. Listen, here's what I'm telling you. Give you a vote of confidence, brother.
Yeah.
The good Lord is going to carry you through that conversation because, friends, these are difficult conversations.
Yeah.
They're not easy to have, but we have to have them. Because why? Because Jesus says, I need you to take care of this. Go feed my sheep. So you got to do it, man.
And we can't hide from things, right? Let's have real authentic. And if I mess up, I mess up, right? If we say things, well, we're hearing this together. So, but friends, I appreciate you joining us. Be back here 8 p.m. Central next week, Thursdays. Dave, thank you so much for being with me.
All right.
I hope the wings weren't too much for you.
They're awesome, dude. No cancel culture on this stuff right here, brother. I'll tell you.
All right. Friends, we'll see you around next